Every single relationship is tested. Every one of us are challenged. Many of us, in terms of a partnership, be it with a wife, a husband, a partner, or someone you work with, it's a challenge. Why? Because you have to meet with different mindsets. One of the famous books on relationships are Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And if you think of it, I think Venus and Mars are next door planets. I think it would have been more appropriate to kind of have chosen Mercury, which is nearest to the sun, and Pluto, which is on the other end of the solar system, given the nature of how human beings are. Because we all are, and they've even done studies on this, and even if you're identical twins, your wiring, as much as there's loads of identical genetics, there's some element of difference. How twins react and respond to a particular situation, circumstance, and people can be absolutely different. And here, when two people get together in terms of a relationship, it's like, you're 50-50, whether you're going to go the part of wanting to kind of destroy each other or kind of hang out together. But it's a learning curve as to getting to know each other. And what happens is, at some level, relationships break down. Be it at some point you disagree mentally, then it becomes emotional, and lo and behold, we don't want it to go that way. It's sometimes, as we know, some people get physical in terms of a relationship, in terms of the differences. How then do we how then do we rebuild the relationship? How do we repair? So at one level, I've shared this before, you have to shift who you are. Expecting the other to change may take a whole lifetime. And then you better believe in reincarnation, and they come back and again until one of you change. And I'm not sure how many of us want to come back for lifetimes if you believe in that concept. All right? So at one level, it's not about who is right, because an argument is about who is right. It should be more about what is right. It's about the issue and what is the truth in terms of the issue. It is challenging because no matter what we bring up, many of us view it personally, as a personal indictment. We need to look at what is right and what is truth. And that could be, in fact, different to what I consider right and the other person considers right. It could be a whole new ball game as to what is right and what is true. But that is a relationship of learning, of discovery, a voyage, in fact, of going together in the same, I'll use the word, direction, finding purpose. Because it's not about commonality of personality, it's commonality of purpose. So it's about not who is right. And most of us spend our lives fighting for who is right. Governments set up commissions of inquiry as to who is right. They speak of history being written by not who is right, but who is in power. Because who is in power determines who is right. And if you find those who've lost power being replaced by another, they will rewrite history. As much as we change the names of streets, it's about everyone who changes the name of a street determines they are right, but it's about the fact that they are in power at that particular moment in time. But power, as you know, sadly can be based on your ego. And if it's based on your ego, it's a deck of cards, a house of cards as we call it, that can fall at any moment. So it's not about who is right, but it's about what is right and what is truth. Now, very importantly, you could be representing what is truth. You could be representing what is seen as the absolute right, the universal right. However, are you and I guaranteed that what you say will be accepted? No. People have died, been sacrificed, been martyred in the name of what is right and what is truth. Martin Luther King stood for what is truth. Mandela stood for what is truth. People have fought wars for what is truth. The Bible is based on someone who was crucified in the name of truth. You know, if you stand for truth, there's no guarantee that you will survive Something interesting I'm reminded of is Van Gogh, who is seen as a brilliant painter. During his lifetime, wasn't necessarily recognized. Even though we may argue, it's still an opinion in terms of art, one might argue that, but he did amazing paintings. He only recognized that after he left the planet. He took his life in the process. What we need to recognize, as much as you may feel, it may resonate with you that you are standing for the truth, far more powerful is what is love. You will recognize the truth, but far more powerfully stand for love. Love means sometimes letting people not necessarily have their way, but maybe they may say what they want to say, but when they are ready for whatever the truth is, then it will happen. And then you view it from a perspective of love, compassion, and kindness. People will shift when they want to shift. So you may lose the argument, be completely disagreed upon, be told that you know nothing. And yes, in time, the truth may reveal itself. But don't hold on to the truth as we do and say, I told you so. What's far more important if you want to shift the world is come from a place of compassion and love. That's how we need to learn to repair relationships. Now, another huge part of repairing relationships is compromise. Now, is compromise a good thing or a bad thing? Over the years, we may see it as a balancing act. Over the years, we may feel, geez, I've compromised and it has let me down. But in a relationship, compromise is fundamental. Compromise is an absolute necessity, except when your principles, your values, what you see as your etiquette, your morals are being challenged. Or in fact, let's say this, when your truth is being challenged or your love is being challenged. Because then, if you compromise on a matter, on a principle matter, on an ethical matter, on a moral matter, what you're allowing yourself to happen to you is you're allowing yourself to be controlled. That means when you are being controlled, you have become like a puppet on a string. People know your boundaries as to how they can push you. In fact, corruption is a compromise on morals, values, and ethics. And then you are suggesting you are controlled. Why? You may be able to be controlled by power. You can be controlled by money. You can be controlled by position. And then you are being dangled like a puppet. Because if you say, I now stand for a principle of value, someone has something against you. So what happens then, when you compromise on a matter which is based against your morals, values, and ethics, you are then being controlled. Beyond that, what you're allowing yourself to do is to be absolutely manipulated. And you may ask, at a relationship level, where relationships are destroyed, recognize if a relationship is destroyed, what fundamentally affects the other person and they feel they have to distance themselves from you or separate from you, is that they are recognizing at some level, be it consciously or subconsciously, that they have been compromised. They feel compromised. No one likes being controlled. They feel controlled. And they feel absolutely manipulated. What it then demands is that you and I need to give rather than being the source of where they gave to you in order to rebuild the relationship. You need to show that you can stand on your own and be able to support them, not just support them, even I'll use the word, to lift them. Rather than them having to support you and lift you all the time. Where they had to give up something they valued, you now need to give up, I will say, our egos to show them the value. There is no guarantee that the relationship will be we will live happily ever after. But the idea is you do your best and let the universe take care of the rest. You still give love infinitely, internally, and unconditionally. Yes, they may not return your love, but that doesn't mean you step back and not give love. So that as much as they go away for a day, a week, a month, a year, years, you are still constant in your giving of love unconditionally and absolutely. It doesn't mean phoning them every day and stalking them. It means coming from a place of love where even if they return, be it a week, month, years, you still have the constant framework of an absolute relationship based on love. That way you are completely connected rather than detached and reacting impulsively to how people behave. Because if you truly love them, if you absolutely love them from a space of truth, then your love is constant. That means you radiate love in spite of how people will behave. Recognize, if we're here at this point, that sometimes we are the ones, in terms of the relationship, who force the other to compromise, give up who they are. And that leaves them very bitter, frustrated, and irritated. And we've used a substance that got us to this point. They weren't just dealing with you, they were dealing with a substance, and with the substance they had no control. They could not allow for a foundation in their lives. It means then you have to possibly ask for forgiveness, but showing you coming from a space of strength, where you are able to give rather than they being the ones giving all the time. So shift who we are, give the love in spite of. And yes, when you go out there and you endeavor to shift the relationship, they will retaliate, they will react, they will behave impulsively, unless they really wow people and say, I love you still, I'm waiting for you to come back. They will. Why? Because they're not too sure whether they can trust you again. They have to test you. They will, like a little kid, push you over to kind of see if you tug at your pants, as kids do, to see whether you are strong in what you say. And when they test you a bit and shove you over and you react and you say, I need to go back to the old dangerous places, my old haunts, then they realize you're actually not made of strong stuff. You are actually quite weak. That's what we don't do this consciously, we do it subconsciously. We're always testing relationships. We may say to people, don't you love me? How do you love me? Love you as high as the sky, or some other song we're playing on the radio. It's a test of relationships. They will test because they need to know in the journey of life that you will support them. Allow yourself to be an anchor to them. So you're not just standing on the ground or sinking under the ground, you're flying in terms of your goal, your purpose, your truth. And people challenge and test people to see if they sustain themselves, anchor themselves